I have been in business independently for about close to 6 years now through Makin Wellness. I started Makin Wellness in 2017 with the intention of helping millions of people to heal and become happy again. So whenever we started, we were an online and in-person therapy company. And my ultimate goal was to make the company remote and to be able to transition into telehealth only. And whenever COVID happened, that is whenever we ultimately decided to change the model of Makin Wellness to make it telehealth only. So we have been telehealth exclusive ever since then. We have about 50 team members on our team. The one question here is how many employees, and I don't know what it is. Like myself personally, I really don't like using that term. I like using the term team and team member as much as I possibly can, rather than employee. It just seems to be a bit more empowering. And again, whenever you use the term team, there is an association between team and performance, and it's important that those that you work with understand this is not a family situation. This is a team situation, and that we all need to work together collaboratively to make your company's goals happen. And so what does your company do and what kind of operations? So what we do is whenever our patients reach out to us, we have a proprietary process of connecting them with one of our specialized therapists. We have a very rigorous scheduling and recruiting process for whenever we do bring on therapists. And so by the time patients contact us, they know they're going to get matched up with an exceptional counselor that will be able to support them. And so a big gap that we've noticed even nowadays is that there are a lot of counseling platforms out there, but there aren't any that are specialized. So that's really our differentiator, is being able to connect patients with specialized providers and also partnering with insurance companies. So we have in-network status with most of the commercial insurance companies, everything from like UPMC, Aetna, Cigna, Optum. I mean, the list goes on and on. And so I think that's also really important too, whether you are in the healthcare sector or not, just really considering whom all can your company partner with. So then that way you can really use that as a scale strategy, especially if you are in healthcare. I think insurance, especially in the Pittsburgh and the Pennsylvania market, is really important. This can also help with ensuring that when there are market corrections and recessions, that your company is still protected, and that you'll be able to still be able to bill insurance and be able to see patients, which is very important. The kind of operations that we have is very, on one end, very complicated, and on the other end, very simple. So I'm always looking at making the complex as simple as possible, and breaking things down into steps and systems. I think systemization is really important. So systemization of how you schedule, for us specifically, like the contact that we have before we reach out to our patients, of like how we market and how we advertise, and then having step-by-step guidelines of like how to schedule and how to retain patients. And then the clinical teams have step-by-step guidelines of like, how does an initial evaluation go, and like how to treatment plan and to do the things that are important for their scope of operations. We also have medical billing and credentialing, which we use partners in that department, and even HR. So I think that's something really important whenever you do have operations or whenever your company is growing, or even before then. It's really important to have standard operating procedures. And I know every company calls them something different, but just like making sure that everyone knows what they need to be doing within every division, that really helps out a lot with reducing confusion. And for me, a typical day in the life, it really depends on the day. I do my best to have my days scheduled far in advance and try to keep similar tasks and similar projects on similar days. So for instance, Tuesdays are typically my clinical days. So that's when I meet with the clinical team members and then go through and really look to make sure that our clinical operations are running smoothly. Mondays are my reporting days where my team forwards me their key performance indicators and their reports from the previous weeks. And that way I can have a better understanding of what's happening for this week and what our gaps are. And Wednesdays, I always look at growth days. So really considering ways of growing the company. That's typically when I will meet with my CEO mentor and really consider like how to make things bigger and better, essentially. And then Thursday is all about marketing. And then Fridays are my idea days and days where I will complete anything outstanding from the week that needs to get done. So if you have a company at this point in time where you are doing a lot of different things within the company, if you can batch them out and plan your days accordingly, that can really help. It's something that I got from the former CEO of Twitter, Jack Dorsey. He was the CEO of two companies at the same time. And that is how he was able to do so successfully, is by planning his days in advance and like having similar tasks and projects on similar days. So most of my time is really spent managing and leading our team and working on the strategy of growing our company. We have been growing very fast, about 90 to 247% year over year growth ever since 2017. So that requires a lot of strategy and good execution. So it's a little bit about me and Makin Wellness. And the next question that I see here are for me to share any takeaways as an entrepreneur, general tips about managing a business. So one of the biggest things that I've really learned is the importance of very clear and obvious communication and communicating in bullet points. So sometimes, especially if you're really passionate about something, it can be difficult to effectively communicate certain tasks from an operational perspective. So always thinking about how can I communicate in bullet points and even have my team members read that back to me. So then that way we are 100% clear about what we're working on. I especially do this whenever I'm delegating tasks. I will communicate the tasks and what specifically needs to be handled in a step-by-step manner. And then I'll have my executive assistant read it back to me. And if there's any discrepancies, then is the time to correct them before she goes and implements. So delegation is very important. Another tip about managing a company is really considering before you even start managing, like, what is it that you want the company or your company to look like and what you want it to do? And to think bigger. I think many times we can sometimes think small. And if you could really grow this company to whatever you want it to grow to or to be like, really consider what would that look like? How do you want your company to truly look like? And then reverse engineer from there. So I think that's really important. In beginning with the end in mind, and understanding that what things look like today doesn't necessarily mean that this is how it's going to look like forever, is also really important. And then communicating that vision to your team. So for instance, everyone that we work with at Makin Wellness, all of our providers and our team members are 100% aware of our mission, which is helping millions of people to heal and become happy again. And so really considering what is the mission, if you do have one for your company, and communicating that as much as you possibly can. Another takeaway as well is having a realistic standard for your team, and understanding in certain things your team is with certain aspects of the company, no one's going to do things better than you. And then in other aspects of your company, your team should be doing much better than yourself. So whenever I really first started growing Makin Wellness, one of the things that I had a lot of frustration with is standards and execution not necessarily happening to the standards that I'd want it to be, or standards that I had for myself. And one of my mentors at that point told me that even if I have a 70 to 80% expectation of like, I'm going to like this between 70 to 80% whenever someone else is doing a task, whenever I delegate it, that even that is good. So having a realistic standard is really important, because I have seen like my colleagues and other entrepreneurs that I know when they're growing their companies, this frustration can come about whenever you go to delegate something and it's not entirely done the way that you want it to be done. And then what they do, instead of looking at why they're getting frustrated or looking at their systems or their processes or their team, what they end up doing is just then thinking of like, oh, whatever, I'm just going to do it myself because I know I'm going to do it right. I'm going to get it done faster than really taking the time to properly delegate. And that is not ideal, because there's only so much that we can do in a day. And so it's really important for us to be able to delegate and to be able to do so at a high level, and to not drag yourself back into the company and when it comes to doing a task that someone else on your team can be doing. And if you have a hard time with this, which I've seen like a lot of entrepreneurs, struggling with this, consider the possibility that every time you're doing a task or taking on a project that someone else on your team can be doing, that you're stealing from your company. And obviously none of us want to be stealing from our companies. So that's one thing. And another thing about managing a company is very, very clear expectations. One thing that I've really enjoyed doing is getting key performance indicators implemented across the company. And that in of itself can really make a big difference. So what that looks like is quantifying what success looks like in every single department of your company, and making sure that it's like crystal clear so that everyone knows, okay, like this is my expectation. So for example, if I'm a therapist, my expectation is to see to support, like, for instance, 32 clients a week, and to get my notes completed and my charge captures released within 48 hours of the session. And just going through every single department or every single role within your company and really considering, how can I quantify success? So then that way the team knows what they're supposed to be working towards. And if you are having a hard time with this, you can just straight up ask the team member, like, hey, like, for you, what does success look like in this role? And then they share their feedback, and then you can share your feedback, and then there can be an agreement about what success looks like. Sometimes this requires updating your job descriptions too, which can be time consuming. However, it is 100% worth it, because then there's clarity about what everyone is supposed to be doing. And I am just going to read the question. So Aetna, yes, we do. David, we do accept Aetna. We do also accept TRICARE, and we have providers that can support those that are veterans and or in the military. I see another question about some specifics on how you got your business off the ground and running. What marketing strategies did you use to bring clients and patients in? So one of the best things that you can do, especially in the beginning, is really offering an exceptional experience. Word of mouth, especially in healthcare, is very huge. So really considering, like, how can I really deliver a wow clinical experience and a wow scheduling experience for the patients, and then that way when they have a good experience and they tell their friends, their family members about it, without you necessarily prompting them to do so, because at least in the mental health care space, providers can't ask for reviews or referrals. So the way that that could potentially happen is by really delivering an exceptional experience. So and again, it really goes down to your systems, your software, the EHR, the appointment reminders, how easy it is to get scheduled in. Do you accept their insurance? Are you billing properly so they aren't getting surprise bills? It really goes into how you handle everything on a step-by-step basis, which goes back to the standard operating procedures, and testing them. There's this thing called like A/B testing, where like you try process A and then you compare that versus process B, and then you see whatever has a better outcome, and then you implement whichever version of the process works better. So there's a lot of fine tuning in the beginning, and consider, until your company gets into the stage of reaching 1 million in revenue, consider that you are still working on achieving product market fit. So that is the experimental stage of business. The other strategy that we use to bring clients and patients in the startup stages, I had a book that was published that became a nationally best-selling book. So that helped with bringing in publicity and helped with attracting new clients. And a lot of it really in the beginning stages, where it was about getting our name out there as much as possible. And it really ultimately depends on your specific business and like your ideal clients. And by ideal clients, if you are from a mental health background, this is a marketing term. This is not like a discriminatory term of like, who is the ideal person to use your product or your services, and where are they at? And then once you really discover who the ideal client or your client avatar is, then it's considering, how can we target them through targeted marketing and advertising? So then that way you can invest your time and your money and your company's resources as optimally as possible. And another question is having mentors a couple of times. Where do you find mentors that you trust? So that's a great question. And when you look at mentors, it's always people who have done what you've wanted to do and they've been where you are. So you ideally you're reaching out to people that already have a successful company, or they had one, or they already sold one, and they're in an industry or have a similar business as you that you can learn from. There's a lot of different like paid mentorship programs that you can be a part of. And even just going to LinkedIn or like connecting with your network and seeing who is a good person that I can learn from. Whenever I was in grad school at Duquesne, actually, one of the things that I did that was very helpful was that I would reach out to a lot of the CEOs of healthcare companies in Pittsburgh and setting up meetings with them. I would do a little bit of like background, like learning about the CEO. So every email was crafted in an individualized fashion. And so almost everyone I reached out to did have a meeting with me, and that really helped from the beginning. So individualizing like your emails, your correspondence can really help with that too. So advice for operations, marketing, managing, and hiring. There's a lot to go into with every single one of those specific areas. Advice for operations is setting up key success indicators and setting up clear standard operating procedures, and having one person accountable for ensuring that those numbers and that the operating procedures are being implemented. If more than one person owns a task or is responsible for a task or an outcome, then no one is. So it's really important that it's one person is ultimately responsible for an outcome. Another tip with marketing is really understanding your patients or your clients or your users or whatever. I mean, I know depending on what kind of business you have, this is different for everyone. So before you really start investing in marketing and advertising, really understanding your clients, what are their pain points, what is it that they're looking for, and really understanding them as people. What we did is we used to send out tons and tons of different surveys, and also just based off of like our experience with supporting patients, we got to really understand who, like what our clients are looking for, and really focusing on us being a solution and sharing that in our marketing, in our advertising, was really helpful. So understanding your clients is very important. They don't necessarily care about the specifics of what you do. What they care about are the benefits that they're going to feel and experience as a result of what you do. So that's really important to highlight the benefits and how you, like specifically, like how they will feel better, or either like have a reduction in symptoms or whatever your company helps with doing, really highlighting the benefits and not specifically your process. Because I see a lot of businesses doing that, especially in the early stages of like positioning themselves as an expert in, let's say cognitive behavioral therapy. But really what patients want is they want to feel less stressed out. They want to feel more content, and they want to feel more confident. So the way that you market A versus B is very different. When it comes to managing, I really have preferred internally promoting team members whenever we did have someone that did a really exceptional job and is capable or already has experience with whatever the increased need is. And managing, a lot of that is building trust and having consistent one-on-ones and making sure that all the managers are having consistent meetings and one-on-ones with their team, so that they can be supported. And when it comes to hiring, again, really considering, okay, why would someone want to work for you versus another company? And really showing and highlighting that in your job listing. Our mission is actually embedded into all of our job postings, even when it comes to internship listings too. So when people do look at opportunities at Makin Wellness, they are already aware. They've actually been told at least one time already of like what our mission is, what we're looking to do, and what we need support with. So don't just copy and paste a competitor's job listing. I know a lot of business, I guess like smaller business owners sometimes have done that. The issue with that is that it doesn't necessarily show the culture or the mission of you or your company. And so I do believe we're supposed to have a few minutes for going over Q&A and the SBDC assistance. So should I still go through that? Because I think I'm going to be a little bit over.
I think that's fine. I mean,
Okay.
We'll just be a couple minutes over.
Okay, sounds great. I'll make it as brief as I possibly can,
Okay.
John. So the way that SBDC helped me with Makin Wellness in my journey is they really helped with helping me to develop a roadmap for exactly what I wanted to do. Tunja was still is very helpful with ensuring that I have the support that I need from a strategy and also from an execution standpoint to ensure that we can continue to grow and continue to expand on our mission to be able to help millions of people to heal and become happy again. They can really help you out with anything. It can be marketing. I think someone was mentioning marketing, how to find mentors, business strategy, finance, even pricing. All those things are things that the SBDC can help you out with. And I highly, highly encourage you guys reaching out because they can help you out so much. And the fact that you don't have to pay a consulting fee is very impressive. And so I do have some time for a Q&A. If you have any other questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Yeah, if there's any questions, you can put them in the chat, or if you're able to unmute yourself, either or works.
Hi. Could you say more about your outreach to the CEOs in healthcare and some of the content maybe of the emails that you sent them?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I did is I would look up the CEOs of, healthcare and related companies in Pittsburgh. And the way that I did that was I went to Google and I went to LinkedIn. This was in about, I believe this was like 2014, when I first started doing this. And then I would just copy and paste the CEO's name, and I would Google them to like learn more information about them. And then what I would do is I would craft an email and I would introduce, I would first say like about how I've been reading about them and like where I'm at, which at that point in time I was a student. So like I'm a student studying counseling, and one day I'd love to become a CEO, and I would just love to connect with you to learn more about your journey and any tips or advice that you have for me at the stage that I'm in now, so I can learn from you. And also I'd end it with, whatever else I can do to be of support to you, I'm more than happy to or just like let me know. And what I also did too sometimes is I would set it up as a lunch meeting, and that lunch was on me too. And then I'd let them know that I'm more than happy to have this wherever's most convenient to you. So like most of these CEOs were in Pittsburgh, but one was in Philadelphia. So I drove to and from Philadelphia to be able to meet with one of the CEOs. And I found that to be very, very helpful. And especially if you can get like in-person time, there's just something different about that. And then sending a handwritten thank you card after that. And if you have branded thank you cards, that's great. If not, that's fine too. So the follow-up is really important as well. And then continuing to like follow up. And the way that I typically do so is I'm personally a huge fan of handwritten thank you cards, because most people just get like bills in the mail and things that are not very fun. So I send those out probably at least once a month to our contacts, to our patients, to our team members, to really anyone